I think what was really helpful was for me to admit that maybe I need help with this. Maybe I need somebody to walk beside me with this. And of course, that's where coaching comes in, right? And you're a coach yourself. And I called them, and we had a conversation, a wonderful conversation with them. And the question I had in my mind and my reservation about signing on to the coaching was being new to a parish. Is this something I want to start first thing? They don't know me. They maybe know me by reputation or whatever, but they, am I going to change too much too fast here and just leave everybody behind, and so conscious of that, I prayed for it and I discerned that, yes, I'm going to sign up for the coaching because I'm probably going to be doing some of this anyway, number one. So why not do it with somebody that has experience with it with other parishes? But also that I think really putting all the oars in the water pointing in the same direction as a starting point is probably helpful.
Welcome to the Huntley Leadership Podcast, helping leaders be a positive catalyst in the people they support, the organizations they serve, and the communities they live. This podcast will make you think, laugh, and grit your teeth with new determination to make your parish or business a place of transformation, passion, and purpose. If you're still breathing, you are powered for impact.
Hello and welcome back to the Huntley Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Huntley. I want to remind you, if you're in parish leadership and you're gearing up for a new ministry, I want to invite you to the DiscipleShift conference that's going to be taking place in the Midwest. It's going to be in St. John, Indiana, being held at a parish that I coach called St. John the Evangelist. It is an unbelievable parish that's focused on parish renewal and giving back. And so you're going to have a ton of fun. It's going to be on September the 20th, 19th and 20th. They're partnering with Alpha USA, and you're going to want to go to DiscipleShiftConference.com. I hope to see you there. Today, we're going to talk about 4 things that have turned around a parish priest's ministry as he leans into parish renewal. I'm so blessed to have with us today my friend, Father Paul MacNeil. Father Paul, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Ron. This is going to be exciting. I can't wait to share everything that I'm doing.
I can't either.
It's good.
I was saying, I wanted to get John because each time we connect, I just love your passion. I love hearing what you're doing. You're being coached by Tom Corcoran and the folks at Rebuilt, which I'm so excited about. We love those guys. And I just love to talk because we talked ahead of time. There are 4 things that are really starting to, or that are making the biggest difference. And I'd like you to start with the first one. What's the first issue or opportunity that's making a difference?
And honestly, it could very well be the only one, but it's not. But it's really, for me, I think it's just having a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ. I think that's absolutely the first thing, the foundation. Now you entered. I've been 24 years a priest, and you're constantly trying to renew your spiritual life. You're trying to follow His will. You're trying to, But I just find in the last few years, I just find myself constantly being drawn more into His love and into His trying to follow His will, what He's doing, Right. And I think that actually has had a lot to do with kind of re-energizing my own ministry as a pastor. I just moved to the parish I'm in now. I've only been here for a year. But thinking about Jesus Christ, if I can share a little bit about that background.
Please.
I just did a series of homilies in the last couple of weeks because we went down to Baltimore to the Church of Nativity to visit it, where Rebuilt is kind of built. You mentioned the Rebuilt coaching, and they have a great program down there, and it was really exciting to see it. So the congregation is asking, okay, well, Father Paul, tell us all about this. I was like, well, where do I even start? So I did a series of homilies in the last little while just on our experience of Rebuilt. There are three homilies on it. And the first homily was a little bit about, I'm not going to give you the whole homily, don't worry. It's okay. But, I was born and brought up Catholic, but in my high school years, back in the late 80s, mid 80s, early 80s, I don't know when, sometime back then, it's a long way away. But I got involved with a Baptist church, and it was an evangelical Baptist church. And my dad was a wonderful guy. He's still with us. He has a degree in theology, so I would go to their church and come back and ask him all kind of questions. It was really interesting. But honestly, they had such a passion for Jesus Christ. They had such a passion for a relationship with him. And that really awakened in me a vocation to the priesthood as well. And I ended up going to the seminary just out of high school. I left it for about 6 years, 7 years, and came back, obviously, But that, and so what's happened recently, is I've kind of been rethinking about that in terms of parish ministry. And I remember reading, Father Michael White and Tom Corcoran's book, Rebuilt. And they started off right out of the gate. Like, if you look at what the evangelical churches are doing, they're blowing it out of the park. I mean, it's incredible what they're doing. And is there something that we can learn from that, right? Now I picked that book up, 10 years ago or so. In my arrogance, I kind of put it down. I say, whatever, I've been through the evangelical stuff. I've been to the Baptist church. I accepted Jesus as my Savior a long time ago. I get all that. So if I'm going to get anything from them, I'm going to go right to the source. I'm going to go down to Saddleback and see what they're doing. Anyway, so I just kind of put it aside. But more recently, I think I had a couple of parishioners that they were early for Easter Mass because we changed the Mass times, and they took a drive. We live in a beautiful vineyard area with wineries around. So they took a drive. They got stuck in a traffic jam, like out in the middle of nowhere. The traffic jam was caused because a new evangelical church was opening, and they came back to church and they said, Father Paul, they're doing some amazing things over there. We got to learn from this. And I kind of remembered back to, okay, my Baptist roots and my, yes, I know, I get that. There's something there that's happening. But then I went and I got Rick Warren's book, Purpose Driven Church, from Saddleback in Southern California. Yeah, phenomenal. I ate that up. But then I'm thinking to myself, man, there's got to be a Catholic version of this somewhere, And then I remembered reading, years before, Michael White Rebuilt and Tom Corcoran, and they've done it. So all of a sudden, I picked it up again, and I could not put it down. It was just speaking truth to me, And I thought, wow, and what Rick Warren was saying, and what Father Michael White was saying is that we got to turn this over to God. We got to turn this over to Jesus. And I kept thinking to myself, well, am I doing that enough? Am I really? Right, and I really in my prayer, I started thinking, Jesus, guide me with this, help me with this, and so I honestly think whatever happens, I honestly think that's got a lot to do with it,
Isn't
and it just
beautiful?
Felt good. It felt good, yeah.
So was it that lady, those ladies who got stuck in traffic? Was that the catalyst that really had you go back and just, it sounds like there was some touch points there. It almost like God was putting some things in place, putting the inventory on the shelves. But then it almost sounds like that might have been the thing that had you go back and start pulling it together to start a movement inside of you. Is that fair? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because I've tried so many different. I'm very enthusiastic about my pastorship, and I want to do a good job. I want to be able to encourage. But what are we doing? And I'm not sure if I ever really understood that as much as I could have. We constantly, and I'm still learning, obviously.
Sure.
But yes, that's a good, the things seem to line up at that point. I think it was them coming back to me at that, it's just the way it hit, because I've heard that before. People have said that before. By the way, just to say one thing about this little series of homilies, one thing that really surprised me about it was for the positive feedback about it. I don't think any of us as clergy ever think that we do a good job preaching anyway, but what came back was how many people said, yes, I used to go to this evangelical church. I know what you're saying. I get that. We have to accept Jesus as our Savior. I love that. And it was so refreshing to hear it in the Catholic Church was what they were saying. That's foundational. I mean, that's no theological issues there, really.
Right.
It's about, it's our baptismal call, right?
Amen.
But when they came to me that Easter Sunday and said to me, they're knocking it out of the park, like somehow that hit me, and that got me to kind of look at that again and say, okay, that's that God speaking to me through that, and He was telling me, okay, wake up now, because I'm how do I do this? How do I don't think what I was doing in that church was working. And that's why I resonated so much with Father Michael White. They thought, and Tom Corcoran, they thought if they could just do more and do it better, everything will be fine. But that's not the answer. right? And I was at that parish trying to do more and trying to do. We got us through COVID, you know, and it was really tough. And you know, I met some really, you know, so it was. That's just that realization that, okay, there's a problem here. You know, maybe the strategy we're using isn't really working, you know. So when I I asked to say, they really picking up. Well, first of all, Rick Warren's book was on purpose-driven church. I recommend that. I mean,
me too.
I think the way that, I mean, he talks about seekers and he talks about, you know, missionaries and he talks about their different levels of growing and of giving, and I think that's really, really good. You know, it's really good stuff.
I just wanna go back, because you said something that is so powerful to me. I've never heard it said like this, and it makes me smile. Your strategy was, and Michael White's strategy was, more and better. Oh my gosh, Father Paul, do you know how many people that is their primary strategy? More and better. It's burning priests out, it's burning volunteers out, it's burning staff out, and we're not getting better results in terms of making new disciples. We're not. And so I just love that you name that. I've never heard that as an approach to doing church, more and better, but it really is not helpful.
Well, it's not, and there's all kinds of ego involved. In my ego, I mean, I would get people bringing bulletins back because we have a lot of snowbirds here. They head down to Florida or whatever, and they come to, Father, look at this church. You know, look how they're doing here. And we suck. You know, this is awful. That's pardon my language. You know, really. Could I say that on that podcast? Sorry.
I'm sure listeners say that from time.
You know, but I should learn not to do that. Okay, nobody bring me any bulletins anymore because I get depressed after I read them. You know. Then I turn to the page where the collection is, and I said, "Look, there's $85,000 there." Start giving that. We'll do more and better that way. Yeah, you know, that doesn't work either. But
interesting. So that
see, I'm blushing now.
So this whole conviction and growing conviction. To me, it's a so obvious grace in your life of this call to deeper and recommitting your relationship with Christ. I hope people listen to that too. You know, sometimes lay people might think a priest, you're always in this steady state of grace that's 100 out of 100. It's like, it's not true. You know, we're all at a place where we have to be, you know, work out our salvation in fear and trembling and be aware of that relationship. And there are times that we're in the desert, and there's times that we feel like we're in the promised land, and that's just the spiritual journey. And so thanks for your honesty. What's the second thing that
actually leads perfectly into it, because, you know, I think that probably one of the best virtues, the most effective virtues for a pastor is, and anybody in leadership, is humility. Yeah. And, you know, I'm the most humble priest in the diocese. I'll say that, you know. but in, you know, and I think that what I had to do once I read Father Michael's book, and I had to really challenge myself, you know, where is the Lord speaking truth to me right now? You know, where is he leading me in terms of being a pastor? And I got moved right after that, right? So I'm now at a much smaller parish, and then it was but getting back to the humility part of it, I think what was really helpful was for me to admit that maybe I need help with this. Maybe I need somebody to walk beside me with this. And of course, that's where coaching comes in, right? And you're a coach yourself, and I called them, you know, and we had a wonderful conversation with them. And the question I had in my mind and my reservation about signing on to the coaching was being new to a parish. Is this something I want to start first thing? They don't know me. They maybe know me by reputation or whatever, but they, you know, am I going to change too much too fast here and just leave everybody behind, you know? And so conscious of that, I prayed for it, and I discerned that, yes, I'm going to sign up for the coaching, because I'm probably going to be doing some of this anyway, number one. So why not do it with somebody that has experience with it with other parishes? But also that I think really putting all the oars in the water, pointing in the same direction as a starting point is probably helpful, you know. Now, I did sign up for coaching before for another organization, and it just didn't seem to feel right, which is, I think, something important to consider as well. As you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, there are different coaches, there are different organizations. They're all good. They're all amazing. When I first started with the coaching, we have 2 coaches. We meet every second week, and then there's a course that we take as well on the off weeks. So we're meeting every week with somebody, but I should have done this the first year I was ordained. It's been so valuable to me for a couple of reasons. Well, one of the things somebody said, this hasn't been the case so far, but one of the things somebody said was that, if you make the changes you're thinking about making, you're going to have a target on your back, because not everybody likes change, and we'll help you through that.
Right.
Well, so far it's been great because, we are making some different kinds of decisions.
Yes.
We're not just doing more things. We're doing it with a good focus, and I do have the support of people walking along with me in that, and it's been really, really helpful. Just so actually just admitting that, maybe I can learn something about being a pastor, Yeah. And we don't have a lot of that in the Catholic Church, do we? Like we really. I was fortunate enough that I had some great mentors, and I was able to be an associate pastor for a couple of years before I got into it on my own. Made a lot of mistakes as a pastor, and maybe if I had the coaching beforehand, maybe I wouldn't have made those mistakes, right? Who knows? But the other thing too is that I feel from the coaching so well supported. 5 years ago when I was being a pastor pretty much on my own. Even though I did try to establish some good leadership around me, but there's so much weighing on my heart when you try this by yourself. But when you're getting coached, you're no longer walking that journey alone, and it is a hard journey. Being a pastor is extremely difficult. The decisions you have to make sometimes, and you're good. I can get into that, but it's knowing that you've just got somebody walking with you. They're not judging you; they're accepting you, and they're positive, and they're encouraging, and they're try this, and this is what we liked about what you did, the way you describe it. So I should have been doing that a long time ago. So the decision actually to make the call, not just to read the books, but actually to make the call and to get involved with an organization that's going to help through this was probably the second thing. So the first was Christ, the second is the coaching, right?
Love it. So that a couple of things there. One, because there are two important decisions. One is and they're both discernment. And I don't know, when you're young and you're starting out, I don't know that there's a lot of people. There are some, but I don't know that there's a lot of people who don't think they can do it on their own by doing more and doing it better, right? I think that's probably a strategy that hey, let me give it a go. I'll be able to do it. And so it's like, well, give it a go. And I think there are very few people that at that early phase of being a pastor are that's even crossing their mind. I don't, and that's okay. It's no judgment, I think, but then that other piece of discerning that, hey, I'm in a new church. Like that's tricky discernment too, right? Should I, shouldn't I? And I love that you asked yourself that question. And I love the answer that you gave yourself too, because I think I'm glad you did that, because coaches often have a lot of experience, or hopefully have a lot of experience, and have seen a lot of these different things before. And when we can learn from other people's mistakes and wrap that around your charisms and your gifts and your passion for what you want to see happen in your church, then hopefully we can help people make less mistakes. So that sounds like that was a neat discernment you had. And again, the other thing I want to praise you for, Paul, is you didn't give up when you had a experience of a coach that wasn't a good fit for you. And it was like, some people, that can be the discouragement. Well, I tried, right off all the coaching because you didn't get a good fit. It's like, I've had some bad haircuts in my day, and, I didn't stop.
I can't believe that. I just... Me too, right? But you still
don't give up, Paul. Don't give up.
Don't give up. Yeah, don't give up.
But I love that. I think there's a lot in there that you just shared in that number 2 of coaching, that there's a lot of wisdom and grace in there. And to your point, humility that it takes to say, well, look, give it a try. Because even if somebody does read some books, get motivated, take a step of action. And it doesn't have to be forever if it doesn't work. So anyway, what's number 3?
Well, part of it is, and we spoke about it a bit before, what I liked about Rick Warren's church down there, Saddleback in Southern California, is they have a very, evangelical appeal. So do we as Catholics. The new evangelization, we're trying to reach Catholics that are struggling. And I struggled myself. The year I left the seminary, I stopped going to church, and I sometimes joke with people, I'm working through the alphabet. I was an atheist, and I was Baptist, and I was Buddhist, and now I'm Catholic. So there you go. I relate to that struggle of that age group, and what we've done is I've created a fictional character, and this is based on the advice from the coaching as well. I know that Father Michael White and Tom Corcoran have done this as well. They call him Timonium Tim. So I made my own up. I looked at our parish, St. Alexander's here in Font Hill, small town, growing very, very quickly, and I came up with a description of who it is that we're trying to reach, and it's not the person that's sitting in the pew every day. Yes, we're trying to reach them for sure and help them to grow. They're at a certain stage of growth, but I think we're also really focused a little bit more on, okay, let's try and invite people here so they can know what it is that we offer, because it's really good, and it's what the world needs right now. So I made up this little paragraph description of this guy, and I call him Font Hill Frank, because Font Hill's the name of the town that we're in. And as soon as I did it, I realized that there's like 4 guys in the parish that are named Frank. So
they live in Font Hill.
There's no, and they happen to live in Font Hill, yeah. But and that's been what it is that helps us to give a framework for our decision making. And I'll get to our decision making in a second when I talk about the fourth thing, but. Right now, we try to see ourselves through his lens and to say, well, now, why him? Why not her? Why not Font Hill Francis? Well, I have read in this particular kind of marketing strategy that if the father of a family is involved in the church, he has a strong impact on bringing the rest of his kids with him. And if the mother alone is involved, it doesn't have that strong an impact. For some reason, fatherhood there is really important. So whatever. I mean, I think that it's some of the same principles apply to both.
But if you go for the one that's
we want
hardest
them all.
to get,
we're not excluding anybody. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the hardest to get. We just started a group in our church for 18 to 34-year-olds. 2 or 3 people show up. But I think that's usually successful because it's a starting point. And I love that. Somebody said to me the other day about it. Well, your young adult group is failing, and I said, well, wait a second. we have it for one thing, and I have never ever, even in without coaching, I've never been concerned about numbers. People come. I don't whatever. God takes care of that. That's also, by the way, a point that Rick Warren makes. I think it's worth making again. That God, and so did Father Michael White and Tom Corcoran. They co-authored the book. I got to mention them both.
Right.
God causes the growth, right? Warren has a beautiful image of the surfer. The surfer, he's got the right equipment, he's got skill, he's got instincts, he knows when a wave comes up, but he can't make the wave, And I think the same thing is up. I think that there are, the opportunity here is just there are tons of waves coming at us with people that need what we give, right? That need tons. And so the question Rick Warren asks is it's not what we are doing to create more disciples. It's what we need to stop doing that's stopping them from being disciples, right? So I think that's a beautiful attitude. So we're surfing here, and one of my coaches is a surfer too, so that's kind of fun. But from Southern California, anyway. But I think that is the group that we're trying to reach, and I think that. It's really helpful in terms of us making decisions about the kinds of things that we're going to do.
So
right?
I just want to pause there for a sec, Father Paul, because you've decided, and that's a bold move. I don't want it to go understated. You decided your primary customer was not Frank in the pews, but Frank who's not in the pews. That's not a small paradigm shift. That is a huge paradigm shift. You're saying, as a pastor of a parish, our first responsibility is to reach outside. Doesn't mean we don't take care of the people inside. But you're saying our primary customer, we haven't even met them yet. Like they haven't even sat in the pews yet. That's what you're saying.
100%. And I think that's the mission of Jesus. Go therefore and make disciples. Right. And absolutely we are trying to reach that outside of us and bring them in. And it's I don't know if it's working yet. I mean, it's up to God.
No,
it's only been there a year. We have doubled in size, right, in terms of the people coming. So that's been a good thing. Now we're not talking about relativism here either. We're not going to water down the faith for them. We're going to try to present them with the truth that they need to hear, that they want to hear, whether they realize it or not. I guess we're not imposing something on them either.
Yeah.
But I guess the idea here is I just want you to ask the questions about Jesus, and seek Jesus in your own heart, and we'll provide a safe space where you can do that and be yourself and be accepted, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey. And Jesus Himself is who's going to bring you along with that, and not me, not anybody else, and not the programming that we do, and not the million things and all that. But it's all those things are to bring that Fonthill Frank so that he can actually encounter Christ and say, wow, this is good.
I'd love if you'd share the description for our listeners, because you put a lot of thought into it, and I really appreciate what you came up with. And I hope this will inspire our listeners to think, hey, wait a minute, we can do this too. And they can rip some stuff off you if they like, and or make that a launching pad to come up with your own. So please.
Sure. Now, you've heard this before, right? So... All right, well, this is it. Not to be confused with any person named Frank. Okay, so right. Fonthill Frank, he's a devoted father with 2 school-age kids, one on the way, so he's got a third one on the way. He's a great job. Both he and his wife work to make ends meet. Weekends are too busy for church, but he still believes in God. He's going to come with his family on Christmas and Easter and funerals and weddings and baptisms. His son plays hockey. His daughter's in dancing. Both go to St. Alexander's School, which is the local school here in the parish, which is the main source of their information about Catholicism. His wife takes care of most of the religious side of things. Their teachers are in exactly the same situation as Frank. They try their best to teach the required religion courses in their school, but most of them aren't all that interested. Frank's parents go to Mass weekly, and his grandmother goes every day, but his grandfather has just passed away. Spiritually, Frank prays, but he also scratches his head when he thinks about the scandals of the church. He and his wife are not really pro-choice, but they have not given it that much thought. At least they know better than to enter into an argument about it with their friends. He and his wife have no issues using birth control. He isn't sure what all the fuss is about, but they are very cautious about what they refer to as the religious nuts in the church. They respect the church, but they have no issue with joining conversations about how corrupt it is with their peers. Face-to-face with the clergy, he is deeply respectful of them, and he will help out if asked and if he has time. He likes Pope Francis, and he considers him to be a breath of fresh air. He's not really sure what he thinks about Jesus, other than that he's a good example, and he agrees with his teachings. But he tends to think that all religions have their place and they're all good. Probably he could care less if the local church survives or not. It's just not that important to him. But deep down, he's searching for something. He's a bit lonely at times and wonders what life is all about. He feels most joy when he's indulging in fun things, but he knows that there's a cost. He's faithful to his wife. He tries not to screw that up because he knows how complicated life can get. So that's Fonthill Frank. Now, our goal is to move Fonthill Frank from being a member of the community to being a disciple of Jesus, transform his life into a life of genuine, deep, abiding joy on his journey with Christ. So that's Fonthill Frank.
You know, as you share that, what I just want to point out is how detailed your description was. Like sometimes when we allow ourselves to dream, we don't allow ourselves to dream with that level of clarity, that level of imagination. And it's so important because the more clear you are with your dreams, or even this fictitious person that you're trying to create, the more real it becomes. And when you can consider those things, when you recognize those things, when you wrestle with those things, how you present, how you invite, the quality of your programs, how we do welcoming, how we do icebreakers, how we use our religious language, all those things start to become filtered through the sensitivity, not because we're, to your point, trying to water down the faith or give a lesser version of the truth. No, we're trying to meet people where they're at and bring them to a place where they can go all in. And I just really appreciate the work you guys did on that. That's impressive.
Well, it's I think the biggest impact Fonthill Frank has on me and in my ministry is probably preaching. There's not a homily that I've done that I haven't, filtered it through his lens.
Right.
He's going to sit there and hear this. What's he going to think about it? you know, and is it going to challenge him, you know, to ask questions and to raise questions and to, you know, but you know what? I mean, yes, it's good to have that kind of focus, but the focus is you got him on this side and you got Jesus on this side. We've got a pretty specific picture of who Jesus is too from the Gospels, and I think what we have to do is read those Gospels, you know, and really get to know who he is and what he's like, and allow him to speak to our heart as well. Because the two of them are going to meet, right? They're going to meet in us, I think. So, you know, somehow.
Reminds me of the four friends who took the cripple and cut a hole in the roof and lured him to Jesus. Like, whatever it takes to get my friend to Jesus, we're going to do it. And you know, when a church has that kind of belief in Jesus and that kind of love for those away from him, they can do a lot of good work for the kingdom of God. Well, one of the things you mentioned
earlier,
know,
Ron.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I just very briefly, I just came back from the Holy Land for the first time. I'd never been there before. And when we were on the Sea of Galilee and that little boat trip they give you, whatever, you know, I delayed that for a long time because I think Jesus is in our hearts as well. But I have to say, I was moved by seeing where he walked. And the only thing I could think about when I was on that boat was how much fun they must have had together. Of course, he's the Son of God. He's full of love, and how much his teaching must have meant to them, and just the joy. I can almost feel it, like, wow, like that. They were excited to be with him. And then I think about what happened in Jerusalem when we went to see that, and his suffering. The man was suffering for no reason, like he was innocent, you know, and the only thing he did was speak truth into a situation. And I thought how helpless his disciples must have felt, like through the desert, right, you know, and he was the leader, and now he's gone in a certain way. And I think that what had to have happened to them is they must have been transformed through his resurrection in the way that we're also hoping to be transformed. So I think that that's really important to move Frank to encounter that as well, to feel the joy of a Christian community that loves him. Yeah. And then to allow him to transform his life so he can manage the difficult times, the desert times, and to see the value of it. So
Amen.
Anyway, I cut you off there a little bit, I think. So.
No, it's nice. I love that. When I think about, you know, the new evangelization, and I know you're fond of help, Frank, and I think Timoni and Tim, too, is, you know, a non-practicing Catholic. And I know for us, at St. Benedict Parish, when we're diving into that, ours was, I don't think we ever did as good a job as you guys did. But we always, we never limited it, and I know you don't either, but we never limited it to Catholics. God's at move in the hearts of his people, whether they go to church or don't go to church, whether they have a religious background or don't have a religious background, whether they're Catholic or non-Catholic. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're right. And I think that part of my motivation is also, and I think it was mentioned in one of the encyclicals from Pope St. John Paul II, you know, what is evangelization, right? We know, go make disciples of all nations, but I think that there's a sense in which it also means conversion of the culture, you know, and so there's a much broader perspective. Like culture is everybody, and it's all the social media communication, all this stuff. The conversion of that culture, what does that actually mean? And I think that Jesus Christ and his teachings in himself have a lot to offer to that and can motivate that as well. It's very real.
Love it.
You know, which comes back to my first point about, you know, the relationship with Jesus, right?
Amen. Break open the fourth pillar for us, or the fourth change. Shift.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that getting more specific in terms of my experience here, it's been almost a year exactly. It's just shy of a couple of weeks before I moved in here. The very first thing that I did, I was going to do this with or without coaching, because I had read Patrick Lencioni's work on business models and his business side of his stuff. Death by Meeting is one of my favorites. And he's done a lot of great work in terms of coaching and renewing parishes as well, which is really great. But the first thing, I had done this at Our Lady of Scapular as well, the church I was at previous to this. And I surrounded myself with a small core leadership team. And I did that here. And I had a great experience with that at my previous parish, and it really, really works. It really works. Part of the humility too, right? I mean, you're not a lone person here. Like you have to surround yourself. We meet weekly. Our group here at St. Alexander's meets every week for 2 hours, and I've got this beautiful commitment from them. They've been with me the whole time. We've developed strategic plans. But I think more important is we pray together, and The other thing that may have been different this time than at my previous parish was that the core leadership team is made up of parishioners, of people who come to that church every Sunday, with the exception of our secretary, who's also part of our team. That wasn't so much the case under Lady of Scapa. The good people, wonderful people, very dedicated to the vision that I had, in terms of what I was doing there. But I do think that if a leadership team, they have to buy into your vision, right? And that's really, really important. And to be able to, and that's what makes it work, I think. But I think to have them actually come to church every Sunday and be part of this community, I think has been really, really helpful as well. And we spend a lot of time talking about our strategic plan, and our mission statement is love God, love others, and follow Christ. We revise it every year, not the mission statement, but we revise our strategic plan every year. And I think this is going to be an important year coming up because, the first year I'm here, we're getting all of our paddles in the right direction. Yeah. I think now we're going to start moving, and we'll see what happens. So pray for us and pray for our parish and pray for all the parishes that are in renewal, because this is an exciting time.
It is. And
to be Catholic.
It takes a real pioneer to really embrace parish renewal and hold yourself accountable to fruitfulness, right? Not just the inputs, but hey, is this working? How can I get better? How do I need to evolve? How can I change, right? Because if you're not the leading part of change as a pastor, it's probably not going to happen. And so I really pray for these people like Father Paul and these other pioneers who are trying their best, because none of us know exactly how to do it, but we're trying it together. We're learning together. And I find that so much fun. Paul, what's your hope as you look forward over the next few years? What's your hope as you continue down this road?
That's a great question. And obviously for the church to grow here, more people to come to church, to have a really good experience, but that's not quite it. For myself personally, I think that my hope is that more people discover who Jesus Christ is the way that I've been able to discover him. I think that's what I really want, because Fonthill Frank is looking for something, and he may not know who Jesus is, and if he knew who he was, I think he would surrender to him. And so I think my hope is really just about trying to share that faith with people and say, hey, this is good. This is something that maybe you need, and I want more people to experience that. And it's the growth, the fruitfulness will be a measure of how effective our strategies are. Yeah. And I hope that we do bear tremendous fruit. And I think that I'd like to set Fonthill on fire. I just like this to be just this really, not a mega church or anything, but just a church where people can know and recognize, hey, come here. This is a safe place for you to explore your faith and to encounter Jesus Christ. And if that can happen, that would be very fulfilling. And it does happen. And it happens in me. It happens so that's sort of my hope for the future, if I can explain it that way.
I love it. Thank you so much, Father. Yeah. Well, I know my hope for you. I'm going to sum it up that I hope your traffic line from time to time has other people heading back to their churches and saying, what's going on down there?
What's going on down there? Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Father Paul
Frank in particular.
Yeah, right. So good. Brother, thank you so much for all that you're doing to build up the kingdom of God. Thank you for your humility, and thank you for sharing your learnings with us today. It's been really insightful.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and it's a great conversation. I hope it's helpful to those who are watching it, and you're always welcome here at St. Alexander's. So
thank you, my friend.
Great to have you. All right, God
really
bless you.
Appreciate it. God bless you. And thank you to all of you that are listening and watching along. Thank you for what you do to make your parish or your business great. We have an opportunity, maybe even a responsibility as Christians, to make people great. And so wherever you find yourself leading, do your best to be your best. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
I want to encourage you, as you lead this week, be faithful to God and generous to others. See you next time, and remember, if you're still breathing, you are powered for impact.